Hello there and welcome to Donington Park for round 11 of the 2009 British GT Championship. Now, as the season unfolds, it's turning out to be one of the toughest fought battles in the competition's history. And to make things a little bit harder this weekend, we've got a 2-hour endurance race which could really shake things up.
I prefer this format of a 2-hour race. It's more of an endurance race.
There's refuelling and tyre change.
Certainly last year there was a lot of excitement. We had one car go up in flames, I seem to remember.
It'll be a challenge, but we've got a strategy.
2 weeks ago at Snetterton we had a couple of action-packed races where no one was prepared to give an inch in that title battle. For the Ford GT, it was a tough weekend. The car clearly had the pace, but the drivers Michael Bentwood and Philip Walker seemed to be a magnet for trouble, possibly costing them a good result.
Michael was tapped at the beginning and spun off, which was not his fault and it was really bad luck. Got going again and came through the field, but didn't give me enough of a head start to hold off the others. And then I got tapped by the Ascari and pushed off into the infield. So, yeah, it was little things, but they went against us, really.
For the Jones brothers, it was a great weekend. They took their second win of the year and extended the lead in the competition.
Race 1 was a good race. I know there was a bit of controversy at the end, but Hector's won his appeal, which is good. And now there's I think just 3 points between us, and then I think the Mazda's only a few more points behind that, so it's all still very close.
Race 2 was won in dominant style by the Rosso Verde Ferrari. However, it was then controversially taken away from them when it was discovered that Hector Lester hadn't been wearing his fireproof underclothing in the car. Since then, though, after much discussion, the win has been reinstated and his penalty changed to an expensive fine. A big relief to the team, keeping them in the title battle.
I think it's fair dues. I've been penalised by a fine and some points for my mistake, and the team hasn't been punished, and the points have been, or the win's been reinstated, and it's better for the championship because it leaves 2 or 3 of us still fighting. So would you say we're happy all round in a fashion?
So, as it stands now, the Jones brothers in the Ascari have extended their advantage, but there isn't much breathing space between them and the others. So for round 11 here at Donington Park, the heavens have just opened and it's absolutely pouring down. So all the cars are on the grid. It's Matt Griffin and Duncan Cameron who take the second pole position of the year, and they'll be looking to try and convert that to their first win, even with these difficult conditions. Here's Martin.
The rain is still slicing down as we get ready to go green for round 11 of the Avon Tyres British GT Championship. 2 exploratory laps behind the safety car lets the field know just how treacherous it is. Duncan Cameron's red Ferrari on pole from Phil Burton's white machine. Third, Hector Lester. Fourth, the Ford GT of Philip Walker. And now it's take your bravery in both hands and accelerate into the gloom down to the first corner. Cameron with the inside line. Phil Burton tucks in behind. Looks like Dan Brown making an adventurous start up the inside in the yellow and black Moser. The Ford around the outside of the Viper for 4th place, but he's a little on the dirty side of the track. Very slippery out there. The Viper moves up to 4th position. That's Craig Wilkins from 5th on the grid as Duncan Cameron leads them down the hill. Really tippy-toey. They'll have been going very slowly behind the safety car, and a huge slide there from Phil Burton. There is no temperature at all in these wet weather tyres they're running, and that means that there is no grip either. And you have to feel for these guys, but at least most of them have got roofs over their heads. In the KTM Crossbow open to the elements, this is going to be a very cold, wet and miserable 2 hours of endurance racing, with physical endurance perhaps being the biggest factor involved. As they sweep around Coppice for the first time, looks like Craig Wilkins is pushing to get himself up towards the front. Look at the view that the drivers have. We're in the passenger side of the Viper with no demister and no wiper. That's exactly what you get if your demisting system breaks down. Craig can see where he's going a little better than we can, but not an awful lot more, I don't think. So Hector Lester in the Ferrari under pressure for 3rd place. Duncan Cameron leads Phil Burton. Ferrari's 1, 2, 3. And in these sort of conditions, really You have to be extremely cautious anytime you're trying to make a pass. There'll be very little grip online, very little grip offline, and it's trying to find the maximum traction somewhere. Craig Wilkins just trying to ease down the inside, but drifts out wide. There's just a little tap there with the Ferrari, and in these conditions that can be enough to send a car spearing off heavily into the barriers. Behind them, looks like David Jones is moving up the order in the Ascari as well. He's just got in front of the Mosler. So this is third and fourth. Behind, David Jones is up to fifth position, ahead of the Mosler. So Dan Brown pushed back down to sixth position. And Wilkins still sniffing around the tail of the Ferrari. He can just about make out the leaders pulling away in front of him, so he'll want to get by Hector Lester as quickly as possible. But of course, Hector and Alan Simonson, winners on the road last time out at Snetterton. They were then taken out of the results because Hector's fireproof underwear wasn't properly approved, but that has since been rescinded and he's been fined for that. But they hold on to that win, and as you can see, the Viper still struggling to get the power down enough to get a really good run on the Ferrari around the outside this time. But Hector Lester is holding on as Duncan Cameron accelerates away. Here we go, this time Craig Wilkins found the grip he needed, and it made a big difference. Hector Lester not able to get onto the power, he was on the outside. The problem with the normal racing line in these conditions is that's where all the rubber and oil from the cars goes. And if you put water onto rubber and oil, what you've done is created a skid pan. So you'll find a lot of drivers, as we sit with Dan Brown here, going around the outside of corners, not using the normal shorter route around the corner to try and hunt out a bit of grip around the outside of David Jones. He's probably got more grip than he would do if he was following the Ascari on the racing line. That was a brave move nonetheless. Around the outside in rain like this on the Craner curves, not to be sneezed at. That was excellent stuff from Dan Brown. Now right up behind Hector Lester. And one of the other factors at Donington Park is he just squeezes inside. That was another good aggressive move. It's right on the flight path for East Midlands Airport. And one thing that you do get is a lot of avgas coming down under full throttle from the planes, and that settles on the track as well. It can make it very slippery because of that. Back with Hector Lester now down in fifth position as we see our race leader Duncan Cameron splashing his way through and building an impressive advantage over Phil Burton in that white Ferrari. There is the second place car. He's got Craig Wilkins right with him now. And Wilkins really feeling very confident clearly. He's using a lot of road, he's using all sorts of different lines, he knows where to find the grip here at Donington Park, and he moves up into second without any second opportunities given there to Phil Burton. Came down the inside that time and put his car right on the apex of the corner. Good stuff from Craig Wilkins. Right behind is Dan Brown, so all the torque of those big cars working well for the Viper, and the Mosler goes around the outside as well. Well, that's got nothing to do with the engine configuration. That's just sensible driving, finding the grip offline, while the Ferrari was on the racing line trying to defend. So Dan Brown really adapting his driving and his lines around the circuit very well to suit these poor conditions. That's exactly what you need, and for a driver with so little experience as Dan Brown, most impressed with that. Racing in the rain, of course, is something that most British drivers have to get used to. It's not Southern California, after all. It is the British summer. This is standard weather. But on the other hand, for a driver with relatively little experience, to be able so confidently to hunt out the grip, I'm most impressed. And I'm sure Craig Wilkins won't be that impressed with the way that the Mosler has gobbled him up. But Dan Brown again all over the back of the car in front, very quickly closed the gap from the Ferrari, and here he comes. Got a great drive on the exit there of Goddard's, and you can see as he splashed through the puddle, the tail of the Mosler stepped out wide. Nonetheless, he stuck to his task. No contact between them, wheel to wheel into Redgate. And these two big, torquey engines allowing the driver perhaps, let's say Redgate's normally a second gear corner, they can stick it in third, keep the wheel spin to a minimum, and all of the torque will still pull them nicely through the corner. And that may well be why these two big American muscle cars are having a much better time of it in these conditions than the Ferraris, which need to use revs for power, and revs often means wheel spin. Meanwhile, Dan Brown sticking to the job in hand, probably can't see a very great deal, that's why he's sort of offset a little bit behind the back of the Viper. Ooh, having a look up the inside, and again it works for him. Well, don't forget, when we were at Snedstone last time out, very brave through Coram on the inside, a little too brave for some drivers like him, but he made several moves there, and very good indeed at McLean's. Great move for second place. Craig Wilkins just couldn't do anything about it. So the Mosler clearly showing it's got really good mechanical grip, because at these speeds the aerodynamics not working as efficiently as they normally would do, and with the slippery surface, surely it's all down to how well you use your tyres. Well, here again, another move. Shaping up is David Jones, comes down along the inside of Phil Burton. So this is for fourth place then. The Ascari moves comfortably by in a straight line. Ooh, Ferrari lunging back under brakes, but it was all done by then. Phil Burton more in hope than anticipation, I think, trying to outbrake David Jones, just in case he could force David into making a silly error and going off. No such luck though, so David Jones moves up. Duncan Cameron still leading in the Ferrari. Dan Brown reeling him in the Mosler. Third, Craig Wilkins, up to fourth now. David Jones in the Ascari. So here is our race leader then, under real pressure. Duncan Cameron with inside him Dan Brown in the Mosler, spins it away at the old hairpin, grabs a gear and keeps it going. Well, that's a great recovery. And I don't think there was contact between them there as a plane takes off overhead from East Midlands Airport. I think he just ran out of room. No damage, it seems, done to the race-leading Ferrari, but clearly the Mosler quicker. Have a look again. Down the inside comes Brown, sees there's no room on the grass, and it was the bounce over the curbs that unsettled the rear end. That's what caused the spin, and there was no contact. But, oh, now then, trouble for another Ferrari. This is Phil Burton bailing out. And that does not look like a brake problem, does it? Oh, Dan Brown across the grass. It's very wet, sudden deluge here. Now Brown in the race lead. As he comes across the line and the safety car boards are out, he's slowing right down. It's very wet indeed. The organisers have sent out the safety car because conditions are absolutely vile. Atrociously heavy rain, standing water everywhere. And as the pit window is open, in comes the Ford GT, and this might be a masterstroke. Philip Walker brings the car into the pit lane to hand over to Alex Mortimer. They've got a large fuel tank, they can stop early behind the safety car as everybody else splashes round Donington Park in the driving rain. The race could hang on that pit stop. Alex Mortimer about to leave the pit road in the Ford GT. Philip Walker there on the left, having just handed over the car behind the safety car, and not before time either as he leaves the pits. Here they go, back to green flag racing. Meanwhile, Diana's in the pits with Philip Walker.
Pretty challenging conditions out there today. Why did you come in so early?
I think I mentioned to you earlier that we had a plan, really. The car's really good on its fuel. So we had a pit window in the dry of about 45 to 48 minutes to give Al over the hour, and we'd change out a sequence to everybody else and give my professional time against the gentleman drivers. But we just came a little earlier because obviously he's going to use less fuel now in the wet. So that was our plan, really. It was always to come in early.
Well, looks like the plan might be working well. Everybody else coming down pit road. This is Duncan Cameron bringing in the Ferrari that started on pole position. Oops. And Dan Brown gets out to make room for Martin Short. Fuel going into the Mosler as with everybody else, but it seems everybody's staying on the tyres on which they started because it is not much drier out there. Now they're all lined back up behind the safety car. The Ferraris, the Ascari, the GT4s, and again, look, it is very, very wet indeed. So looks like everybody is taking this opportunity behind the safety car to complete their pit stops. Jose Barbiani getting into the car that Paul Warren started. Barbiani in wet conditions last time he raced as well. That was in Nog Hill. Martin Short in the Mosler. He's getting ready to take over the car of early season championship leader Dan Brown, and away he goes. And the lights are off on the safety car, so we're getting ready once more to go back to green flag racing. And this is the battle for 6th place. We're right with Alan Simonson in 7th. In front of us is Matt Griffin. And Alan being very cautious about using the power of the Ferrari. It is absolutely streaming wet. And don't forget, the wet weather tyres have been in use for about an hour already. So they're not going to be giving their greatest grip. Very wet indeed down the Craners. Simonson has a wake-up call and he backs out of the throttle and Griffin's off. Matt Griffin loses control, drifts back on, and Simonson skates around the outside of the old hairpin up into 6th. But Godfrey Jones in the Ascari that his twin brother David started right behind this battle in 8th place. And on the back of the safety car queue, the car that is leading the race. Well, again on board with Matt Griffin, River there, and another one. Well held, sir. That was a very slippery moment down the Craner curves. Got back on and only lost a few metres. 1 place went with it, though. Martin Short in the Moser in 4th place, the car that led before the first safety car. And Alex Mortimer is now the race leader in the Ford GT after that early pit stop. Worked really well for them. The second safety car helped them catch right up to the back of the queue. And they are almost half a lap in front of anyone else. Diana's in the pits with Dan Brown.
Dan, you were leading, but now you've dropped back. What's the problem?
We're a bit puzzled, to be honest, how the Ford's got in the lead. We didn't really see what he did there, but we got a bit of an issue. The engine keeps cutting out, so when you go down the gears, it suddenly switches off. You come out the corner and you have to try and hit the start button again, and then we get going. But we're losing countless seconds because of that, and yeah, it's just a bit annoying.
No kidding, especially in that wet weather conditions, and it looks as though Martin Short's had enough. Looks as though the car's had enough, actually. It looks like it's overheating pretty badly. Well, the new engine installed overnight after qualifying, and it looks like it's not lasted the distance. Alex Mortimer leads then from Jose Balbiani in the Ferrari. Aaron Scott closing on him in the Viper in 3rd place. Matt Griffin's Ferrari 4th. And the Jones twins Ascari in 5th position. And here is the battle for 3rd versus 4th. The Viper so quick in the wet weather conditions, but now on a pretty dry track in the closing stages, the Ferrari using its power a little better, using its tyres a little better. Griffin looked to get back up into 3rd place. Don't forget, he was battling for 6th position at the restart, and this is the car that started from pole position, all over the back of the Viper. Both cars struggling for grip. You can see them sliding their way out of the corners, just drifting through on the power, trying to balance the need to get the power down with the need to keep the tyres alive on this rapidly drying track. Now, the worst thing that could happen for everybody would be more rain now. Oh, Griffin tries the outside, can't quite squeeze through. These tyres are now feeling fairly second-hand. Rain would help cool them down, but there's probably not much grip left, not much tread left on them after nearly 2 hours of use. Into the first corner, Matt Griffin moves up to 3rd place. Or does he? Aaron Scott fights back on the inside. Still plenty of grip off the corner. Just trying to get the car slowed down, not as easy for the Viper driver. And down the Craner curves, remember what it looked like when Matt Griffin went off? It was a mirror. Oh dear, well that is definitely the end of the road for the Mosler. Bad news for Dan Brown, our early season championship leader as well. Bad news for the hard-working Roll Centre Racing team. Well, here's our race leader, and it looks like Alex Mortimer really benefited from that early pit stop behind the first safety car. During the second safety car, he was able to take advantage and move up into the race lead. Jose Balbiani drifting the car through the corners in 2nd. Matt Griffin closing on him in 3rd place. Looks like the newer Ferrari's got slightly better grip than the older version. Looks much more angular, the front end of the 2009 spec Ferrari 430. As he peels off Coppice down the straight, again taking time to hunt out the water and still the inside line as well. And that was a pretty assertive move. Up into 2nd place goes Matt Griffin. Jose Balbiani in 3rd position. Only raced twice in British GTs this year, in the rain in Scotland and in the rain in Donington Park. I imagine he probably believes it rains every day of the British summer. And actually this year he's not far wrong. Griffin in 2nd place then, and the Viper in the background lurking as well, getting a little closer to Balbiani's Ferrari. Alex Mortimer just being a little extravagant there through the chicane, no real dramas. Ford certainly seems to have the pace on everybody else. Through the old hairpin comes Aaron Scott, water on the camera lens. Rain is starting to fall once more. Look how filthy the windscreen is. He's not going to switch the wipers on though. Concentrating on trying to catch Jose Balbiani in front. Don't forget the Viper in the podium positions before the pit stops. Looks like he may well end up on the podium at the end of the race as well. Oh, yes, he will. Balbiani makes a big mistake coming out of McLean's. Skates off and right through the puddle there on the inside on the run up to Coppice. So the tyres finally being asked a little too much by Balbiani. And that leaves Matt Griffin here in second place in the Ferrari. Third place, Aaron Scott in the Viper. See how dry the track is now. Those wet weather tyres will be feeling really awful, like you're driving on jelly as they squirm around, desperately overheating. Nigel Moore leading the GT4 class in the Ginetta, started by Jody Firth. It's been a good run for them once more, and a great run for the Ford GT. Denied victory at Snetterton, being knocked off the road a couple of times as the rain returns in the closing moments of the last lap of this 2-hour enduro at Donington Park. It is going to be the first win of the season for Team RPM and the Ford GT. The first win in British GTs for Philip Walker, and a glorious return for the 2007 champion Alex Mortimer. He takes the checkered flag. It's victory. And the team are delighted. Second place then for our pole sisters. Not a bad result at all, considering how the Ferrari struggled in the rain. And for Philip Walker there on the left, a great first win.
I bet it was. I bet it was.
Jody Firth, Nigel Moore wrap up the GT4 victory. One Ferrari on the podium between the Viper in third and the Ford claiming its first win of the season.
Alex, many congratulations. First time in the car this year, and you've brought it home at the checkered flag.
Yeah, no, it's exactly what we came for. I'm really glad for Philip because he's had a hard year so far, and that's just a bit of a reward for him. It was a great effort by the team. They played a great strategy for us, and it worked great, and it's allowed me to try and control any lead I had. Matt was coming quick at the end, and he was very fast.
Very, very difficult conditions. I don't think the car was straight most of the time, to be honest with you. I was on the lock stop, sideways, wheel spinning. But I mean, we're happy with second place.
It was really, really tough. Obviously, the car was so good in the rain at the start of the stint, and then it was difficult, I think, for everybody when it got greasy. But I think if it had stayed wet, we could have maybe caught the Ford, because I had really, really good pace and I was really enjoying myself.
In the GT4 category, Jody Firth on the brink of the title. But in the GT3 category, with a 15-point spread over the top half dozen, it's still anybody's race.
So an exciting end to what has to be one of the toughest races of the year so far. Congratulations again to Alex Mortimer and Philip Walker taking that Ford GT win. Next time out, we'll be at Silverstone in Northampton. So we'll see you then. Bye-bye.